Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Kilroy's Outlaws, Legends, and Beyond the Music.
Welcome to Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music with your host, multi-award-winning music producer, Eddie Kilroy. And now, here's your host, Eddie Kilroy.
Hey, here we go, and welcome in to another edition of Kilroy's Outlaws, Legends, and Behind the Music. Today we're going to be talking about our dear friend, Johnny Lee, and everybody knows Johnny Lee. If you don't know him, you should have known him. You should get to know him because he's one great guy. What do you think about Johnny, Elizabeth?
I think Johnny is wonderful. One of the funniest men I know. I swear it's funny.
He makes me laugh. He makes anybody laugh.
It takes a lot to make you laugh.
Johnny Lee is a great guy and a funny guy. And, you know, we've sat around and listened to Johnny's stories and some of his jokes on the bus. And, I mean, you can't stop laughing.
No. He tells the cutest, funniest.
And his delivery.
Lizard and monkey jokes.
Yeah.
I wish we could tell.
We could, too.
But
we can't do it as good as Johnny.
No, it would not be doing it justice. But anyway.
He's something else. And a funny guy that makes everybody laugh. But his singing is heads above a lot of people. He had a lot of hit records. Yes, he has.
Well, let's,
wow. You know,
when was Johnny born?
Johnny was born in a pretty long time ago in 1946.
1946.
You know what? Texas City, Texas is where he was born. Mm-hmm. In 1946, there was an explosion there, and then they realized it was Johnny Lee being born. You know, really, this is true because it was the headlines from my hometown, which is about 50 miles from there as the crow flies. Headlines, Johnny Lee born, explosion in Texas City. Well, everybody said, oh, baloney, they don't have explosions in Texas City. What happened? Mm-hmm. Next year, they had an explosion. Mm-hmm. 1947, a ship loaded with ammonia nitrate blew up in the harbor and almost leveled the entire town, a large percentage of it. Yeah. But prior to that was Johnny Lee being born.
It was a bad deal. A lot of people
killed a lot of people.
Yeah,
I was telling you, we were talking about Johnny Lee, but it ties in with Texas City. Our place was about 50 or 60 miles as the crow flies from where the explosion was, and the window shook. And, of course, I was a kid, a real young kid, and Mother was hollering, there's an earthquake, get out of the house. But it felt all the windows were shaking. That's how strong that ammonia nitrate explosion was. But anyway, back to Johnny Lee. Johnny was born with a deep love for music. Mm-hmm. At one time in his life, it didn't matter as long as it was music. It could be a little edgy, it could be a little rock and roll. In the 50s, everybody did some rock and roll. Their heart was in country, but they were doing rock and roll. And Johnny had a band, and he worked the little beer joints for cover songs and what have you until, first of all, I need to say where we met. Mickey Gilley and I, and a drummer who's gone now by the name of Kermit Ryder, three pieces were working at a place called the Ranch House out on Spencer Highway. A lady owned it by the name of Adele Necessary. And Johnny came by and asked Mickey, hey, I sure would like to sing one.
Well, didn't he first attend that juke joint for a long time?
Oh, yeah.
He got up the nerve.
Yeah. He came around a lot. I'd see him out there. He'd say, he's always an outgoing, friendly guy. But he asked Johnny, asked Mickey, can I get up and sing one? Well, Mickey being Mickey, he said, well, of course you can. Mickey don't know if he can sing or not, but he said, hey, come up and sing. And he sang. And a relationship between Mickey Gilley and Johnny Lee developed. And Mickey really, really took a genuine liking to Johnny Lee.
So wait a minute. So you've known Johnny, so you and Mickey go back
50.
A long way.
A long way.
You and Mickey were playing in that little band together at the ranch house.
Right, three pieces.
So
$10 a night a piece.
You made $10
a piece. It was Mickey wasn't not going to be a star. Everybody, if he gets 10, everybody's getting 10. Yeah. I mean, he would share the wealth. Believe me.
$10. Well, I guess a night that wasn't real bad money back then.
As bad as we were.
I mean, what was that?
We were stealing.
That was in the 50s. So
we were stealing. I mean, that's how bad we were.
So you were playing with, you and Mickey had that little band going, and Johnny was there watching, and so you've been knowing Johnny about that.
Johnny a long time, but you know what? I had a friend of mine tell me that Liz brings you back in when you get off subject, but sometimes I like it when you get off subject. And that reminded me of something. When we were talking about a little band, I played bass, camaraderie playing drums. Every city had a copy of the Dick Clark Show. And in Houston, it was a guy by the name of Larry Kane, who had Larry Kane Show, who was a cheap spinoff of Dick Clark. But still a big deal if you get on it in Houston. So he invited Mickey to be on it and do a show. And Mickey said, hey, we're going to do the Larry Kane Show. I said, great. He said, I'm going to do this song. I said, Mickey, I don't know that song. We're going to have to rehearse it a little bit. He said, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just turn your amp down. Nobody knows the difference on TV. So we did that whole TV show, and I'm playing bass, but nobody can hear it. And I'm glad because I wasn't playing the right notes. But they couldn't hear it. Anyway, that was a side note of the Mickey, Gilley, and Kilroy and Johnny Lee. But Johnny wasn't on that show. But I didn't want to interrupt your train of thought. What was it? You were talking about something.
No, we were just talking about your time with Johnny and how long you've known him, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah,
so we
from
started
there.
at Nesadel. Oh, wait a minute.
At the ranch house.
Ranch house. And
Yeah.
then what?
Well, Mickey Gilley, I had left playing with Mickey and he got a radio job, which paid more than $10 a night. So I jumped on it. Mm-hmm. And we had such a great relationship and friendship that Mickey got so hot in Houston, he would pack that little ranch house beer joint, which would hold maybe, 100 people, maybe if they were shoulder to shoulder, 150, little old joint, but nice. And Adele was a really nice lady. And she decided to build a bigger place further up Spencer Highway called the Nesadel. And Mickey moved up there, added a couple of pieces to the band, and talked, maybe didn't talk to him, maybe just told Adele, because Adele loved Mickey, she'd do whatever he wanted. You need to hire Johnny Lee to open for me and work for me. Because those were 4-hour nights, and that's tiring to sing 4 hours, boom, 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 boom. So Johnny Lee went to work out there, and Adele loved Johnny Lee. So this is all prior to the building and the introduction of the great Gilley's Club further up Spencer Highway.
So in other words, Mickey and Johnny were Houston hits.
Yeah, they were superstars in Houston.
In Houston.
Roger Miller had a song one time that everybody remembers, Kansas City Star. Mm-hmm. And this one guy was a big star, did the parking lots, did the grocery store openings and so forth. Mickey was kind of like the Houston Star. I mean, everybody, and he had a TV show, a local TV show sponsored by a furniture company in Houston. And it lasted maybe 4 or 5 months or so, but that embedded him in that Houston market.
And
but,
Johnny was on his coattail.
Yeah, but you know what? I think Mickey wanted to help Johnny, and Johnny was carrying his own. He's a good singer. He was doing well, but Mickey was tutor him and teach him how to handle an audience, how to portray what the audience was looking for on stage and the songs they wanted. And in the music industry, we read the audience. And
as you tell me, you work them.
Yeah, and then you say, what do they need? What am I going to give them tonight, Well, Gilley knew that. I mean, he was just a natural. He and Jerry Lee both, of course. But with Johnny, he was kind of stoic when he started because he was nervous. By the time he got into working with Gilley for a year or so, he could go on stage and act like he owned the place. He had a lot of confidence. But then the confidence really got big when somebody in California decided they needed to make a movie on Gilley's Club and the Mechanical Bull and the whole thing.
Well, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Back up, son.
Yes, back up.
Put it in R.
Backing up again.
Backing up again.
All right. Before that. No, it was after that. I'm so sorry. You are 100% right.
I know, right? I just don't argue.
Carry on.
Yeah, no, Shelley was Shelley's. It was a big old tin building. Sherwood Choir, a guy of rather ill repute, to put it nicely, came to Gilley, said, I'll put your name on the club and go 50-50 with you if you'll leave the club he was, the Nesadel Club, and come down there and we'll have a big deal. At that time, it was a tin kind of a tin shed, as I remember.
Like a pole barn?
Yeah, pole
Kinda.
barn with concrete floor, and they had polka music, only 1 day a week on Sunday. But Sherwood Crier said, I'll build this club, put your name on it, give you 50% of it, and come down here. So Mickey, of course, took the offer, went down, and became even more popular in Houston because the club was so big. That club was so big, I'm not telling you a lie. I've been there twice, a lot.
Well, which
They
is
had,
twice
no,
or a lot?
a lot.
I mean,
Twice time and time two is a lot.
that is it.
Well, sometimes. The point I was going to tell you, the club was so huge. It had a reputation of being the most peaceful joint in Houston, Texas. I mean, you're talking about a place that would seat right at 10,000 people. They would have, the reason it was peaceful is they would have a fight over on one side and a fight over on the other side. Nobody could see them fighting. So they said, boy, nobody ever fights at Gilley's. This is a good place, you know. So that was kind of a thing that stood out in my mind. That club was so big that I could stand on one side, you could stand on the other side, and you could see me but not recognize me. You could see a figure. That's a big club.
Johnny told me one time that they had the mechanical bull there at Gilley's. They had, what, 3?
I don't remember. I know they had one.
More than one anyway. And they had them pretty close to the stage, close to what they should be. And people would kind of ignore whoever was singing and make a lot of racket over there with the bull. And they had a bell on the bull, a bull bell.
Oh, yeah,
and all
yeah.
that. He said it was pretty aggravating.
Yeah.
He didn't like that.
In other words, it's hard to be in competition with a buck and bull when you're singing low. But
Well, anyway, that's just what
Mickey
Johnny told me.
Mickey was very proud of anything Johnny Lee ever did. But Mickey was that kind of guy. Mickey, we've talked about Mickey a lot because Mickey was one of my lifelong friends. He was so kind, and he didn't have to put on. Mickey Gilley loved people. And he would show that love to Johnny Lee, and he'd say, now, love your audience, okay? Sign every autograph. Don't ever quit. Mickey did that. He would sign.
Yeah, I know.
You know, if Mickey closed a show at midnight somewhere and all the people were lined up for autographs, it did not matter to him if there was 100 or 1,000. I've seen him do a show, close it at midnight, still be signing autographs at 3 a.m. He didn't turn anyone away. He said, Johnny, you do this. He learned that from Conway Twitty, by the way. Conway told Mickey to do it. Mickey did it. That was part of Conway's success, is locking in with his audience so much. So he taught Johnny, and Johnny would do the same thing. He would.
Well, that makes sense to me. I mean, I wouldn't particularly like somebody that snubbed their nose and said they didn't care.
No, it's an amazing thing. Willie, for instance, and you know I love Willie, okay? We have really different, I would say, political views. I'm being kindly now.
Yeah.
Willie got to the point where he wouldn't sign autographs. And I had people tell me that. Why does he go straight to the bus and not sign autographs? I think one was at that particular time, Willie was aging a little. I'm talking about, 30, 40 years ago. He was still starting to age a little. And he had, remember when Willie had the, what do you have in his hands? Come on, it's carpal tunnel, yeah. And he had to have surgery and work on his hands. So he didn't want to sign autographs, and he didn't. But getting away from that, back into Mickey and Johnny Lee, Conway Twitty, people like that, Loretta, they love their audience. You can't fool the people anymore. If you're on stage, they can feel your love, or they can say, hey, he's taking my ticket money, just singing me a song, and I'm supposed to clap. But Gilley and everyone that he tutored around him, even the girls, and you've met all the girls that have worked for him as background singers at one time or other, they projected that same thing, don't you think, when they were on stage? Yeah.
I do. They did.
Yeah, but Johnny did well, and then along comes Urban Cowboy. And the soundtrack was produced out in California.
And don't you wish you'd have
Oh,
produced
good grief, girl. If I produced that album, I'd be...
We'd be on a nice ranch somewhere.
No, you could go to the grocery store. you could buy Walmart, yeah. You could start dressing out of Walmart. But but I didn't get to do it. It's done out in California.
You didn't get to produce the soundtrack album.
No, I didn't do that album. But there were some songs presented, and one of them was Looking for Love. And Mickey was hot. I produced, I'd have to go look again, 10 or 12 number one singles, 14 number one singles on Mickey. Probably prior to that movie, probably more like 8 or 10. And Mickey was hot, so he could kind of have his choice of songs. And I asked Mickey when I found out what was coming on the album, I said, I really like that Looking for Love. Why didn't you do that song? He said, simple. I wanted Johnny Lee to have a hit. And I knew that was a hit. And he said, I was hoping that I could sing any of those and have a hit. And it turned out he did on that Stand By Me. That came out of that soundtrack. But he was so tickled to death to give Johnny Lee a shot to have a number one record.
And I think that speaks volumes of him.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can't say enough about Mickey Gilley. Trust me.
So Johnny took that one.
Yep.
And he ran with it. And he became very popular. Now, back to where I was going to say, I don't know how he met his first wife. I asked him one time on the bus.
She was blind in one side, and he snuck up on that side.
I guess so. Yeah, I know some men who do that, but
Texas Charm.
no, y'all don't believe that Texas Charm stuff. I'm telling you. Anyway, I said, "How did you guys meet?" I mean, his wife was a star, and well, he was a star too, but two different stars, one TV, one music. And he was fixing to tell me when somebody interrupted him and needed him for something, and I never got the answer. But his first wife was the star of the Dallas TV show, Charlene Tilton.
Dallas?
Dallas, she's
Well, I never did like that. If it had been Fort Worth, I'd have watched it.
Well,
Okay,
I
go
watched
ahead.
it every
I
don't
bet
think,
you did.
I don't think I missed an episode.
No, it was a popular
Everybody
show.
wanted to know who shot J.R.
I know it was a popular show.
So
who shot J.R.?
he,
Who in the hell was J.R.?
she was very pretty, and so they married. And unfortunately, it didn't last long. It only lasted, I think, 2 years. They had a beautiful daughter,
Yeah, she's pretty.
and I'm trying to think of her name, but her
I
middle
think it's
name is
Cherish or Cheryl.
Cherish Lee is her name.
Cherish Lee.
And so
Yeah.
took Lee after Johnny, so Johnny Lee, Cherish Lee. And
I'm glad she didn't look like Johnny.
well, she took after her mama. She's
Good.
very pretty.
Good for that girl.
She's pretty. And she goes on stage with him sometimes. And she sings with him. She has a pretty decent voice too.
I know that makes Johnny proud.
And I
Johnny's
don't
a
know
good
what
guy.
Cherish is doing today. I don't know. Maybe she went off into a pop field or
I don't know.
who knows. I don't know what she's doing. But as we know, Johnny is no longer performing,
Yeah, he's retired.
and
Yep.
he needs a lot of prayer.
Yes, we're all praying for Johnny right now. I don't mind saying it because he said it on his farewell tour. Johnny is stricken with that awful, awful disease of Parkinson's, and he's not doing well at all. But he fights it and fights it. And before Mickey passed away, and we were talking about Johnny, and I said, "How's Johnny doing?" He said, "He's in denial. He's going to say, I don't have Parkinson's, and I'm going to continue to work." Mm-hmm. And he said, but he needs to shut it down because he really, really shouldn't be working. Well, he worked about another year, I think, not taking Mickey's advice. And finally, he just said, hey, I can't do it anymore. Because similar to a guy that you like, Alan Jackson,
Yep.
he has Parkinson's. No, he has something else similar to Parkinson's. And fans were talking about, you don't want to see Alan Jackson. He's drunk. He can't even get up to the microphone. He staggers all over the stage. And finally, he was convinced by somebody, hey, come out and tell the folks what's wrong with you.
It's a nerve disorder.
Yeah, it is.
It's not Parkinson's.
No, I knew that.
Some kind of a nerve disorder.
But he's not out there anymore, I don't think, because he wants to give the people what they came to see, and that is, Alan Jackson. And he was not Alan Jackson up to par. But getting back to Johnny Lee, I'm skipping everywhere. Looking for Love was not kind of a hit record. Looking for Love was a monster. It's one that an artist and a producer look a lifetime. I looked a lifetime for Don't the Girls Get Prettier at Closing Time, because I could not have hid that record and kept it from hitting. And the same thing with Looking for Love with Johnny Lee. 3 weeks number one in the country charts.
And it It went over in other ones
It
too.
went over the Hot 100 pop charts to like number 5, I think, and then it stayed in the contemporary charts.
Contemporary, adult contemporary, yeah, it went there. So it
Yeah.
crossed a lot of boundaries, and he did well with that.
He worked
and
for
then he
years.
went on to make, I think his last album was in 1985.
85, that's
I
about
believe it
right.
was his last album. He had huge hits with Cherokee Fiddle and Yellow Rose.
Yellow Rose, yeah. Matter of fact, he named his ranch in Sulphur Springs, Texas, the Yellow Rose Ranch.
Yellow Rose Ranch.
Had a
And
bunch
bought
of-
that in, I think, 2013 or 14.
Right. Well,
And he liked running horses, quarter horses.
quarter horses, yeah.
And-
Running quarter horses.
But I think it's been sold now.
Yeah, and actually, I think at that time Johnny's health was declining a little bit, and he couldn't enjoy the ranch as much as he wanted to.
Yeah.
So he kind of settled in to Branson because he and Mickey were working Gilley's theater a lot there, and it was a lot easier than touring. However, they still went out on tour. The Urban Cowboy tour. Let's talk about that. This amazes me. They would just sell out pretty big venues, like and you've seen it, and I've seen it. We've been to those shows. And one show in particular, I'm standing in the wings looking out there at the crowd, and it was packed with people. And usually you can't see the crowd as well because the lights are focused on whoever is on stage. However, at this venue, I could see the people. And I'd see some older people with blue hair or gray hair, ladies. And some men, Anyway, and all of a sudden I said, wow, what a pretty young girl. And I'm guessing she's 18, 19, 20 or something. And I said, what a young girl. How does she know about Mickey Gilley and Johnny Lee, and I would see another young person. And maybe it was a guy, maybe it was another girl, but I was seeing quite a few young people out there. So when Gilley got off stage and we're sitting in the dressing room having a drink, I said, Mickey, I said, you haven't had a hit record in the charts since '80s. How do these young people know about you and Johnny, and they're coming to all these shows, the Urban Cowboy Tour? He said, because of the movie. He said, they haven't heard our records, but they've seen us on the movie, and they're coming to see the Urban Cowboy deal.
Super hit. That movie was monster.
Oh, it was a big one. It was a big one. I wrote kind of a hit song because of that movie.
What was that? Hard Hit?
Hard Hat Days and Honky Tonk Nights. I went to see the movie after it was released, and the big posters had out in the theaters of those days, it said, Hard Hat Days and Honky Tonk Nights. I said, wow, that's a great title for a song. And that's I'm going to be looking forward to hearing that in the movie. I'm watching the movie, I'm waiting on this Hard Hat Days and Honky Tonk Nights. That was just a description they'd put up about what the movie was going to be about. But there wasn't a song. Mm-hmm. So the next day, I go to my office, pick up a guitar, and I start writing it. And I got a verse and a chorus written. And I'm going into a second verse, and I'm thinking, I'm hung up, and I'm cutting Red Steagall, producing him in 2 days. I got to have that. I called Dave Kirby, my buddy, great writer. I said, what are you doing? He said, not much. I said, well, get you a stick to write with and come over to my office, and we'll finish up a song and we'll do it on Red Steagall.
A stick. Is that Texas vernacular?
Yeah,
stick?
for a pencil or a pen or whatever. Get you a stick to write with. And anyway, he came over and we finished the song. And Hard Hat Days and Honky Tonk Nights, it went to, I think it was top 10 for Steagall. Wasn't like a big #1 record, but it was funny that they did not have that song in the movie. Because it's so descriptive of the movies.
Yep, it would have been.
And Johnny is a very talented guy. Mickey Gilley loved Johnny. And Mickey's wife, Cindy, helped Johnny a lot too as he became a little more ill. But she took extremely good care of Mickey. And,
over the top.
Oh yeah, and she and Mickey loved her. They got married, and he sent us a video of their marriage. And he was grinning like a mule eating briars. He was so happy, And Cindy was happy, and we stay in contact with Cindy. And it was we went up to Branson. She invited me to do his memorial at Gilley's Theater, and it was packed with people. I mean, lots of people. Jimmy Lee Swaggart came in to preach the funeral. We saw a lot of our old friends there. T.G. Shepherd came in. Harold Shedd came in. Gosh, so many people came in for that.
Johnny was there.
Johnny was there. I've got to share something with the audience because I think Johnny was in shock for so many years with Mickey, because I'm up on stage and I'm speaking and delivering the deal for Mickey. And I looked down, and in the second or third row was Johnny. And I looked at him and I said, and Mickey Gilley loved Johnny Lee. And Johnny never changed expressions. I think he was so stoic. I know he was locked in on this feeling that I ain't believing this. Mickey's dead.
He probably didn't want to openly weep in front of people. And that's probably what
I'm sure he did that
do.
at the house because he loved Mickey, as we all love Mickey. Anybody that knew Mickey Gilley had to love him. He was one of those type guys. But we've had a great time today, and I don't know if we've missed anything.
We missed something.
All right.
We did not talk about, after Charlene and he divorced, they had the one daughter.
Right.
A couple of years later, he remarried. And he had a son.
That's sad.
And it was Johnny Lee Jr.
Right.
Johnny Lee Jr. was a handsome young man as well. And so, unfortunately, Johnny Lee Jr. Died of an overdose.
Yes, he did.
And that threw Johnny into advocate for drug abuse.
Yes, he really worked hard at that.
Right on up to, he couldn't do it anymore. He was huge into drug abuse restriction. And so that's so sad.
He worked on that. I felt bad. I shared this with you. I did not know that John had lost his son. And John and I talked once a week, twice a month, whatever. And I hadn't talked to him in a few days. And
at that particular time, it had been well over a month.
A month?
Yeah, been a long time since you talked to him.
Yeah, it had been. I just didn't recall. But it had been a while, and he answers the phone. Hey, Kilroy. I said, hey, Johnny boy, how you doing, son? And he said, I'm doing okay for a man that just lost his son to an overdose. Mm-hmm. Oh, it made me feel very small. Yeah. So he's so happy, which I was always happy to talk to John. And I think it took him a while to be able to talk to people about that until he started being an advocate for the terrible situation that we're in today. It was happening then with the fentanyl and all the stuff that was coming across the border, which thank God the president is shutting down a lot of that. But this has been a great time and a lot of fun things to talk about and share the stories and the laughs we had with Johnny Lee and the way Mickey had. It seemed like Mickey was on a mission in a way. I want Johnny Lee to be a star. Whatever it takes, I want Johnny Lee to be a star because he really liked Johnny as a person. Well, listen.
Can you hear? I hope they can't hear that.
What?
Your bulldog is laying over here snoring behind me.
He's getting heavy. He's 100 pounds.
He's 100 pounds.
But let people know he's not a pit bull, please. What is he? I can't remember.
It's a long word, about that long.
Bigger than mayonnaise?
Bigger than mayonnaise.
Wow, that's a long word.
But he's a big boy.
He's
and he's snoring.
He was 98 pounds at the vet, right?
No, 100.
100. Wow, he is a big boy. You need to pick him up and put him in the truck. No, it's hey, I want to ask you folks something. A big favor. I love and Liz loves telling stories, relaying to you what we've known in the music industry. I was 4 decades in Nashville, and these guys were all my brothers, my friends, and pals for so many years. And we can tell you things about them, share stories that you won't find online, because these are stories that I've watched people go through, things they've done, things they've said. I was friends with so many people, so blessed to know so many great entertainers. But we're doing this and giving you information you can't get on the internet. It's not going to be online. So, we'll tell you things about it that maybe you'll enjoy hearing about all the different artists and what have you. I'm saying all that to grovel to you and ask you to please subscribe and let us build this thing, be a part of building this so the whole world will continue to know about country music and will grow into country music. So if you will subscribe and share it with your friends. I mean, hey, if you won't share it once, It's not hard to push that button 10 times. Share, 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 share. Here comes Kilroy and Liz, huh? We would appreciate it. And listen, we're going to saddle up and drift. Where's old paint?
Oh, wait a minute.
What?
Hold on. I just saw something.
What is it? What is it?
I wanted to give a shout out to the gentleman that made this for you.
Oh, it's so nice.
Yeah. Wade, I think, right?
Wade, yes.
Wade made that. He's in Kentucky, and this is made out of all car tags in Kentucky. So, Wade, we thank you very much.
Thank you, Wade. And we went up to Harold Shedd, who's been on this show, that dear friend of mine for so many years, is doing a podcast also. So we went up North Oklahoma, and did his podcast and met Wade for the first time, and he brought that down.
He did, and it was so sweet.
It really, really was a great bunch of people up there, and we enjoyed every minute with them. But in the meantime, old Paint, where are you? Bring him up, Paint. I ain't putting that saddle on him. You put a saddle on him, pull him up tight for me, and I'm going to get on him, and I'm going to ride out of here. God bless each and every one of you. Liz and I are saying, have a really, really good day or good evening wherever you are. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music. If you have any thoughts or questions about the content, email them. Kilroy Outlaws and Legends, all one word, at yahoo.com. That's Kilroy, no S, Outlaws and Legends, all one word, at yahoo.com. And don't forget to subscribe. Third-party use of any part of this podcast without the expressed consent of Eddie Kilroy is prohibited. The Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music podcast is a production of Eddie Kilroy.